The mansion was quiet, its silence broken only by the soft snip of scissors cutting through hair. The spacious living room gleamed with luxury, every detail meticulously curated. Golden chandeliers that caught the afternoon light, plush velvet sofas that seemed to swallow you whole, and marble floors that shone as though they'd never seen a speck of dust. Outside the tall windows, the estate stretched as far as the eye could see, lush lawns, sprawling gardens, and the distant, glittering pool. Ava, with her busket and arms covered in intricate tattoos, sat behind a makeshift salon setup. A mirror stood propped up against the wall, a vintage chair placed just so in front of it, and an antique table cluttered with hair care products and scissors. Ava's client, a middle-aged woman with shoulder-length, salt and pepper hair, sat relaxed in the chair, a smile on her face as she stared at her reflection. Ava worked quickly, her hands steady as she snipped away at the woman's hair, transforming it into a sleek, polished bob. The hum of the scissors was the only sound, an almost soothing rhythm. But that peace was abruptly shattered by the soft click of high heels echoing from the marble hallway. "Stop, Mrs." Langston's voice rang out, cold and sharp. Ava didn't flinch, she didn't even pause in her work, but her client glanced up, startled by the commanding tone. Mrs. Langston, the matriarch of the Langston family, stood in the doorway, her elegant presence filling the room. At 62, she had the kind of beauty that only deepened with age, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled in an elegant updo. Her tailored, cream-colored dress and diamond earrings glimmered in the soft light of the room, but her eyes were filled with something far less glamorous, disappointment. Anger, even. "Ava, this has gone on long enough, Mrs." Langston continued, her voice strained, as though the words were a weight she had carried for far too long. This is not what we do in the Langston family. We don't cut hair in our living rooms. We don't live like this." Ava didn't stop cutting, but she did look up, her expression unreadable. "What do you mean by, live like this, Mrs. Langston?" The older woman took a step into the room, her heels clicking on the marble, her gaze never leaving Ava. "I mean," she said, her voice trembling now, "you are dating my son. You are a part of this family. And yet, here you are, cutting hair in my home like some kind of commoner." Ava's hands stilled for just a moment, a flash of frustration crossing her features before she resumed her work with renewed focus. "I'm not a commoner, Mrs. Langston. I'm a businesswoman. I built this salon from the ground up. And it's my art. This is my passion. It's not a hobby, it's not something I do for fun. It's who I am. I know that, Mrs. Langston snapped, her voice rising. But you don't need to do this anymore. My son has everything. He's a Langston. You can have everything too, anything you want. You don't need to work in a place like this. You don't need to cut hair to prove anything." Ava paused again, setting down her scissors for a moment, the tension in the room palpable. Her client sat quietly, unsure whether to speak, but Ava's calm voice broke the silence. "You don't get it, do you?" she asked, her eyes steady but firm. "It's not about proving anything. It's about being true to myself. I don't need your money. I don't need your approval. I need my work. I need this." She gestured to the setup around her, her own space, the art she created with her hands. "I didn't grow up in a mansion like this. I didn't have a trust fund to fall back on. I had to fight for everything I have, and I'm proud of that. So, no, I'm not going to stop. Not for you, not for anyone." Mrs. Langston's lips trembled, her perfectly painted face suddenly showing cracks. "But you're a Langston now. You'll marry Dylan, and you'll be a part of this family. You can have everything you ever wanted without lifting a finger, Ava. Why would you want to keep?" Her words caught in her throat, as if the enormity of what she was asking, the impossibility of it, had finally dawned on her. "Because I want to," Ava replied quietly. She met the older woman's gaze, her voice softening, but there was no mistaking the finality in her words. "Because if I stopped doing what I love, I wouldn't be me anymore. And you wouldn't want that, would you?" The silence in the room was thick, suffocating almost. Mrs. Langston opened her mouth to speak but seemed to think better of it. Instead, she took a step back, her eyes clouded with emotion. For a moment, it looked like she might turn and leave. But then the silence was broken by the sound of the front door swinging open. "Mom, what's going on in here?" Dylan's voice rang out, filled with panic and confusion. He appeared in the doorway, his designer suit impeccable, his brown hair slightly disheveled from the wind. His eyes locked onto his mother and then to Ava, his confusion growing. What is all this? What's she doing here? His voice was almost frantic as he glanced between the two women. Ava and Mrs. Langston both turned to face him. The door to the mansion swung open with a sharp creak, followed by the unmistakable echo of heels tapping against the marble floor. Dylan Langston, his tall frame cutting a striking figure in a tailored navy suit, appeared in the doorway. His brow furrowed in confusion as he surveyed the scene before him. Ava, scissors still in hand, her expression calm and steady, the client in the chair looking a little nervous, and his mother, Mrs. Langston, standing rigidly with her arms crossed over her chest, her face a portrait of disapproval. What's going on here? Dylan's voice rang out, a note of panic threading through it. His gaze flicked between the two women, Ava, his girlfriend, and his mother, the matriarch of the Langston family, who had always been the image of control and grace. This moment, however, felt like everything was falling apart in slow motion. Mrs. Langston turned to him, her eyes widening with the kind of vulnerability that she rarely allowed herself to show. Her perfect composure seemed to be cracking, the harsh lines of her face softening in a way Dylan had never seen before. Dylan, her voice was trembling, but she quickly regained her usual steely tone, trying to hide the hurt. You need to talk some sense into her. This is not how we do things. You can't allow her to. She cut herself off, her frustration bubbling to the surface. This isn't the life we've built for you. You're supposed to be part of a legacy, not this. Dylan's lips parted in surprise, but he quickly stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. What are you talking about, Mom? His voice had grown sharper now, the urgency in his tone mixing with disbelief. What's going on? Why are you acting like this? Ava remained silent, her eyes flicking briefly to Mrs. Langston before returning to the client in front of her. She didn't move to defend herself. Instead, her calm presence filled the room, giving Dylan the space to absorb what was happening. Mrs. Langston was undeterred by her son's confusion. She had a purpose, and in her mind, she was doing what was best for him, even if he couldn't understand it. She gestured toward Ava and the salon setup in the living room, her words coming out quickly, as though she were afraid time might run out. She's cutting hair in our home, Dylan. She's been doing this in our living room, as if that's somehow acceptable. She's a hairstylist. The word seemed to hang in the air like an insult, as if it was something beneath the Langston name. I know you care about her, but this is not what we've worked for, son. You can have everything, you don't need to live this life. Don't you want better for yourself? For us? Dylan stared at his mother for a long moment, blinking as if trying to process her words. A flash of confusion crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced by something more determined. He shook his head slowly, his voice rising in a mix of disbelief and frustration. Mom, I don't want that. I don't need to have everything handed to me. Ava, she's more than just a hairstylist. Dylan said the word like an accusation, throwing his mother's dismissiveness back at her. She's built something on her own. Something real. She's passionate about this. And you? He turned to his mother, his words sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. You think I'm going to turn my back on her because of a job? Because she's not proper enough for you? I can't believe you're making this a problem. Ava, who had been silently watching the exchange, felt a familiar warmth spread through her chest at the sincerity in Dylan's words. She had known he supported her, but hearing him say it so forcefully made her heart swell. She could see the shift in him. He wasn't just her boyfriend anymore. He was standing up for her, and that meant more to her than any material possession ever could. Mrs. Langston's face twisted into a mixture of shock and disbelief. It was clear she wasn't prepared for this kind of confrontation. Dylan, you're my son. You've always been. She swallowed, her voice cracking slightly as she fought for control. I only want what's best for you. The Langston name means something. It means respect, Dylan. Status. You're not meant to throw all that away for. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence without sounding more cruel than she intended. But Dylan wasn't finished. He took another step toward his mother, his shoulders squared and his eyes fixed on her, unflinching. And what if I want to throw it all away? What if I want something different, something real? I'm not you, Mom. I'm not going to marry someone just for their family's name or their wealth. I'm with Ava because she's the person I want to be with. Not because of some idealized fantasy you've created in your head about what's appropriate. Mrs. Langston looked at her son in stunned silence. The words were like a slap, and it was clear that the weight of them was sinking in. For a moment, she said nothing. Her expression wavered, something deep in her eyes faltering as the walls she'd spent a lifetime building came crashing down. Ava, who had been quietly observing this tense exchange, took a slow breath and stood up from her chair, walking over to Dylan's side. She placed a hand on his arm, grounding him as the tension in the room hung thick between them. "Dylan's right," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I don't need approval from anyone. I'm not here to destroy anything. I'm here to be me. And if that's not enough for you, then maybe we're just not meant to be what you think we should be." There was a pause. Mrs. Langston blinked rapidly, almost as if waking from a trance. She looked between the two of them, and for the first time, her gaze softened. I just wanted you to have the world, Dylan," she whispered. "But maybe I've been trying to give you the wrong one." Dylan's jaw tightened, and his voice was low but resolute. "The world I want is one where I get to choose who I love, what I do, and how I live. You're my mom, and I'll always love you, but that doesn't mean I'm going to live my life by your rules." There was a long, tense silence. Finally, Mrs. Langston exhaled sharply, and something in her posture seemed to relax. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Then, I guess I'll have to get used to it," she said quietly, her eyes meeting Ava's for the first time without a trace of judgment. "But you'd better make sure he's happy." Ava met her gaze without hesitation. "I will." The atmosphere shifted, and for the first time, it felt like there was room for everyone to breathe. Dylan smiled faintly, taking Ava's hand in his. "Well, that's a start." And for the first time in a long while, Mrs. Langston allowed herself a tiny, tentative smile.